Welcome back to the Power 2 here on College Football Addiction. A little bit of a breakout episode. Tom Hannafin, TJ Pittenger here with you. Let's talk a little Penn State, Tom. With the transition from James Franklin to Matt Campbell, what are the immediate expectations? I see a lot of these early top 25 lists, and Penn State's in all of them. Is that realistic? Is that the expectation? Is that where we're going back to immediately, or is it wait and see from the Penn State perspective for you?
I think the top 25 is a reasonable expectation. I just wouldn't jump terribly far ahead of that. I think there's a lot of Penn State football fans that have grandiose expectations of 10-2 and a college football playoff appearance. I am very much of the mind, wait and see with this entire thing. I think Matt Campbell is a very good hire. I think the pieces that he brought with him from Iowa State, both on the staff and on the roster, are going to be very, very helpful. And I think Penn State is going to feel very similar to the way they've felt for a number of years. And it's a run-first team, big in the tight end department. Wide receiver is still a question mark, unfortunately, but you should have some very competent quarterback play with Rocco Becht. And then defense is going to be something that I'm curious to see how it all comes together, because Penn State has young defensive ends. They added a lot of size along the defensive line, especially defensive tackle in the portal. They retained some key defensive backs. Linebacker is going to be bolstered by the transfer portal and some Iowa State guys. Danton Lynn, the new defensive coordinator. I think there's plenty of reason for optimism, but you just don't know how all these puzzle pieces are going to work together. Could it be 6-6? Could it be 8-4, 9-3, 10-2? Anything can happen. So I think for those Penn State fans that are jumping ahead to a 10-win season, I would just say, hey, pump the brakes. Let's set the expectations low and just kind of see how this all works out. But it does seem like on paper, Matt Campbell has done a really good job in the transfer portal, and he's starting to sell Penn State, the brand, all over again, not the man.
I think there was this narrative in our minds that when a coach would come from a lower division, which I don't mean to crap on the Big 12, but go from Iowa State to Penn State, there's an obvious jump there that, like, oh, if you just bring all your guys with you, like that, yeah, you're not going to have a success just running all of Iowa State's guys out there. And then we watch a coach do that from JMU. And not that he didn't add other really good key pieces, but I think that narrative, at least the idea that it can't work, not that it always will be Cignetti 2.0, like that's not my point. I think that narrative of like, oh, well, you just grabbed a bunch of Big 12 guys, like they're not going to work in the Big 10. I think we have to at least be open to the idea of like, hey, wait a minute, culture really matters, and understanding a philosophy matters, and buy-in matters, and those things that we think about with Indiana. I am a huge fan of Matt Campbell. His name got tossed around when Florida State's job came open before they hired Norvell. And so I do really like the hire, and I do think, man, some of the additions that you might have written off had an Iowa State guy just transferred to anywhere else, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Florida State, Florida, wherever. You might have said, oh, well, it's an Iowa State. Well, we'll see. When they do come with their coach and they already have that buy-in and they have a lot of that, I think that's a big deal. So a little more on the portal, just other thoughts there with not only the Iowa State guys, but then other pieces that he's grabbed from elsewhere.
Yeah, I think you have to touch on the Iowa State guys because there are so many of them. There's roughly 20, if I'm not mistaken. Rocco Becht, who I already mentioned, a quarterback, coming off an injury, surgery on his non-throwing shoulder. So he's recovering, last year of eligibility. Had a great 2024, had better weapons in 2024. See how he fares here in 2026 with Penn State. The tight end room should be very, very sound for Penn State, in that you already have Andrew Rapplier coming back from last season, arguably Penn State's most productive tight end from the 2025 campaign. Benjamin Bramer, who is 6'7", 255, was the number one tight end for Rocco Becht and Iowa State last year. The running back room for me is a curious position because 2027 five-star running back Kimon Spell has been everybody's headline over the last few days. He visited with Penn State. He had been previously committed to Penn State. Then he decommitted when James Franklin got fired. Now he's been crystal ball predicted to go to Penn State. Some people online are rampantly speculating, saying maybe he could reclassify for 2026. Well, your running back room is potentially Spell, but you never know. That could be a 2027 thing. And then you have James Peoples from Ohio State, Carson Hansen, the number one running back from Iowa State, plus Quentin Martin Jr., who shined in the Pinstripe Bowl, and Cam Wallace, plus Tyke Hayes. So you've got kind of an Oregon situation from last year where you could have 4 to 5 running backs that could all be solid contributors. Wide receiver, Chase Sowell, Eskildson, especially from Iowa State, two guys who it's like, okay, you feel good about, but like, do you feel great about them? Kobe Howard, you're retaining. The offensive line has this nice balance of guys from Penn State that are either starters like Anthony Donko, guys on the cusp of being starters like Cooper Cousins. You add in potentially Trevor Burr from Iowa State, potentially Brock Riker from Texas State. You could see a nice patchwork offensive line figured out in the offseason and solidified in season. And then on defense, like I mentioned, Penn State had this issue for James Franklin, under James Franklin for years, where his idea was to recruit the frame of the human being, TJ, and then to pack on weight once they got on campus. This new regime has been screw that. Let's get the biggest people we can possibly find to play defensive tackle, because it does seem like Penn State's going to maintain a 4-down front. Even if they elect to go to a 3-down front, you're talking about multiple guys they brought in that are 320 or bigger. Good luck moving them within the Big Ten. They don't even necessarily need to be the greatest athletes that were ever fielded, but they do look like solid players, and there's a number of them that Penn State got in the transfer portal. Linebacker Bacon and Brazina from Iowa State, really solid Iowa State linebacker play for many years under Matt Campbell. Penn State struggled at that position. Ironically, linebacker I think adding Neal and who's the other defensive back? I'm trying to remember his name. A bunch of different guys from Iowa State, as you can imagine. What was his name? It's here somewhere. Jeremiah Cooper. That's the one I'm thinking of. Marcus Neal Jr. and Jeremiah Cooper from Iowa State. I think they round out a secondary that's maintaining Zion Tracy, Audavian Collins, some really interesting pieces for Penn State. So I think overall, the Iowa State guys are going to help stabilize this thing. And then there's a couple guys here and there from Utah, from UCLA, from Texas State, as I mentioned, from Ohio State, like James Peoples, that are going to add some spice to this thing.
How do you measure success in year one? Because like fans want wins and losses, but like when you're looking at it and maybe you take a step back or take your fan hat off for a minute, like how do you measure success?
For me, it's, does this team pick up where Terry Smith left off in the regular season in 2025? And what I mean by that is not necessarily the wins and losses, but you saw a distinct difference in play from James Franklin in 2025 to Terry Smith in 2025. You saw grit, you saw passion, you saw effort. There's a lot of stuff that has come out, and I think will continue to come out about the issues within Penn State football in 2025. James Franklin asking for an extension, not receiving it, trying to go around AD Pat Kraft, getting caught with his pants down, so to speak, and then trying to squeeze this program to get to a national championship, a level that he had no concept of how to get to. So now you've got Matt Campbell, who, similar boat, I don't think anybody is expecting him to win a national championship in 2026. I think a winning season is the bottom line that Penn State fans are expecting going into 2026. But again, with so much change, how much could that possibly be? It remains to be seen. At least on paper, Penn State's schedule is favorable. And again, like TJ, you and I have talked about this a ton, especially Indiana ruined everything for everybody, is that the brand name doesn't matter anymore. And the roster turnover has been so significant this cycle. You just have to wait and see. But Penn State's hosting Marshall, at Temple, hosting Buffalo, at Maryland, at Michigan, at Northwestern, hosting Minnesota, Purdue, Rutgers, USC, Wisconsin. You're at Washington. So it's a pretty favorable schedule. Like the only big bads on this schedule, at least from a brand standpoint, at Michigan should be tough. Hosting Minnesota should be tough. Hosting USC should be tough. And at Washington should be tough as well. So like, even if you say all four of those are losses, 8-4 ain't bad. Not a bad season for Penn State, but still, I am very much wait and see until August of what all these other rosters look like, because you can't just say, well, it's Rutgers. That's a win. We have no idea anymore.
Obviously, the most important position, and you got to win in the trenches, and you've got to be able to do certain things and cover guys. But you know, when you nail kind of a quarterback, it's a big deal. How many games? I mean, you just mentioned the 12 games that they play. How many games does Penn State not have a quarterback advantage in? Like you know, you may say, or it's like, you know, so either they have a clear disadvantage or it's a toss up, right? So, you know, Washington's probably in there. Michigan's probably pretty close. Is there anything else I'm leaving off of there?
Malik Washington for the Maryland Terrapins.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would pick Washington over Becht, but it'll at least be nose to nose. Pretty competitive,
like
right? At Michigan, Bryce Underwood with an actual quarterback coach this year. See how that goes. Northwestern's a tricky one for me because they get Aiden Childs, who struggled at Michigan State, still a 5-star prospect coming out of high school, and his offensive coordinator is oddly Chip Kelly. So that could all work. Minnesota has had consistent quarterback play, but do they have anything better than Becht in 2026? We'll have to wait and see. USC, who we're going to talk about in a minute. Jaden Mayava had himself a nice season, but does he have the same weapons that he did last year? And then Damon Williams, I assume by the end of next season, he'll have reconciled with his entire team. But, you just got to wait and see.
Should be fun. Tom, where can people follow you? Where can they find all your content?
Check me out on X and Instagram at Tom Hannifan, TomHannifan. And if you want more on Penn State football, check out State of State, a Penn State football show on Believe Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. Myself and currently former Penn State wide receiver Deion Butler bringing you everything regarding Penn State.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.